All right, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be working on the front end. We're going to be replacing inner and outer tie rods, sway bar end links, lower control arms. You'll see there I just ordered a kit that comes with everything. I did get some tires put on those wheels because the other ones were shot, but we'll take care of that after we get this front end done. We'll get it aligned. Anyway, full disclosure on this video, I am doing a voiceover. Reason being, this was just a car that fought the whole way. You're going to see in this video that the torch comes out many times. Every bolt, everything was a fight on it. Even though it doesn't look that crusty, it turned out to be. And starting right off the bat here, trying to get the sway bar end link out. That top nut just wouldn't come off no matter what I tried, so I finally had to heat it up to get it off. And even then, it still didn't want to come easy. There, I did finally get it. So now we're going to go for the bottom one. You really can't get an impact in on the bottom one, so I had to get a ratchet. And there's actually an access hole right there. You can kind of see it through the control arm. That's how you get on it. And this one I could actually get a wrench on. That top one had no flat sides to get a wrench on, but we're just going to kind of speed through this so you don't have to suffer through the whole ratcheting process to get this nut undone. And again, this is just how I'm doing the job. I'm sure there's probably a more efficient way to do it. I was just trying to take care of the easy stuff first, and there, finally get that sway bar end link out. Now I'm working on that lower control arm bolt. This is the one on the front of the control arm. These things were in there. As you can see here, I've got an extra long wrench and a cheater pipe. In hindsight, I probably should have got out my big breaker bar. It might have made it easier, but hindsight's 20/20. But you can see there I did break it free. And another thing I should have done beforehand, I should have dropped this AC compressor out of the way. It's just in the way. You can't get the bolt out unless you drop it. But you'll see later on here I do eventually drop it so I can get that bolt out and replace the control arm. And then also in this video, just due to the sheer length of it, I'm only showing you the passenger side because it's the harder of the two sides. Mainly, and the reason it's harder is because of that AC compressor and having to drop it. Other than that, the driver's side is much smoother because you don't have that issue with the AC compressor, and it's the exact same procedure or method of operation. And then here I just now I'm trying to break that jam nut loose on the outer tie rod. This fought me as well, as you can see here. It just did not want to move. And this thing, like I said, it does not look that rusty. But previous owner did absolutely nothing to this car, and it shows with everything that I've had to fix on this car. So yeah, I really tried working on it, but I get the heat out again. After some heat, we try it again. Still not happening, so we're going to put some more heat on it. Try it some more. Still nothing, so I had to break out the big guy and get the acetylene torch out, and we had to make it cherry red. That is the only way this thing would come loose. And just so you know, because I'm not going to show you the process on the driver's side, everything you're seeing me do here on this side, I had to do exactly the same thing on that driver's side. Everything just wanted to fight. And I guess, knock on wood, I didn't break a single bolt. Very surprised with how hard some of this stuff was. But anyway, got that jam nut free. Got the tie rod end where it would spin. So now I'm just getting this boot off and of the inner tie rod. There's a little spring clamp, and then there's like a metal clamp on the inside, on the inner tie rod. You can stick a screwdriver in there and pop it out. Just moving that pinch clamp a little bit. There's a kind of a divot in that inner tie rod that's having a little bit of difficulty sliding over. But now I'm just getting the outer tie rod off so I can get the boot off completely, and then we'll get the inner tie rod out. And here I'm just grabbing a 24 millimeter impact socket, and I'm going to use it on an impact to spin that jam nut off. And I was struggling here a little bit, having difficulty getting my locking pliers to disengage, but yeah, he finally did. So now I got all that stuff off the inner tie rod. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the rear bolts, or the lower control arm rear bolts out. The front one, so there's two bolts on that back side of that control arm. The front one you can get a wrench on. The most rear bolt, you do have to have a flex head ratchet to kind of get in there. It's kind of a tight spot. Both of those bolts, for some reason, the two rear ones had Loctite on them. The front one did not. And now, the hardest fight of the whole job right here was these lower ball joints. Both sides, that Torx bolt was seized in there. The ball joint itself was seized in the knuckle. Probably a good 30-45 minutes of just, and you'll see me using a hammer. I don't reuse these bolts, even though you'll see me put them back in when I do reassembly. And you'll see in a future video. You'll see in a future video that I do replace those because I believe Ford even recommends not reusing those lower ball joint bolts. But you're going to see me fight this thing. That's me with a long 3/8 ratchet. That bolt was seized in there. So here I'm going at it with a 1/2 inch ratchet. And yeah, it's in there. But I'm going to work it with this 1/2 inch ratchet. Then you'll see me switch over to an impact. And yeah, it's starting to move a little better. If I can say one thing about this car, it has taught me patience, because every little job is just a full-on job, a lot of work involved. But here I am just working it back and forth with the impact. Again, yes, I'm hitting it with a hammer, and yes, you'll see me put that back in, but I can assure you in a future video, I change it out. But you can see all the rust that's just coming out of there as I spin that with the impact. This was just a precursor to how hard it is to get the ball, or how hard it was to get the ball joint out. And here I'm just using that punch to put some pressure on the back of that. Finally that bolt comes out. Now I'm going to zip through the fight of getting the ball joint out of the knuckle. But I'm just going at it with a series of pry bars. I beat on it with a hammer. It's just, this was honestly, I think it took me about 30 to 45 minutes of all this to finally get that thing to break free. Anyway, here I step up my game and I get an air hammer out, and the hardest part about this was just trying to find a good spot to put it, and I do eventually, like that was a pretty much just a straight air hammer bit. I switched it up to a longer one with the point on it so that I could get it down in and actually on top of the ball joint where it's inside the knuckle. But I thought just by maybe vibrating it with the air hammer around the knuckle, it might have freed it up, but it did not. Trying with the hammer again. Trying with the long bar again. So here's the secret. This is what won. So a few minutes of heating it up here with the little torch, and then I come back at it again with the air hammer, and it finally breaks free. You'll see here I finally get it in a good spot there, and you can see it starting to pop out. So I'm going to take my big bar again here and find a good spot, and there we go, finally. I hope if you guys have to do this in the future or on your car that it goes a lot smoother. Here I'm just trying to drop that AC compressor, and that head of that bolt was messed up, but I did eventually get it. And to drop this AC compressor, it's essentially just a series of, I think, like 4 or 5 10mm bolts, and then it gives you enough room to drop it down so you can get that front lower control arm bolt completely out. Yep, so there we finally got it out. So here we're going to pop this control arm out. And now I'm just using my inner tie rod tool, and we'll get the old inner tie rod out. And I don't know if you saw when I dropped that control arm down on the floor there, you could tell that that ball joint was shot. Now, could I have contributed to that with everything I did? Maybe, but I think it was bad beforehand. So essentially my inner tie rod tool here just takes a 1/2-inch ratchet, and this is actually the easiest part of the whole job, was taking this one out. That was the only thing that did not put up a fight. And you'll see here when I get it out of here, it was shot too. So now we'll just get back into reassembly, and here I'm just putting the new inner tie rod in. Screw it in by hand at first, then I'll get the tool back on it. I'm sure there is a torque spec for this. I don't know what it is. I just put it back in as tight as it was, when I took it out. And there we go. And now I'm just putting the boot back on it. It just slides on. The smaller end kind of sits down in a little recess in the tie rod. Putting the spring clamp back on it. And now I'll get a zip tie, and I'll put that on the inner part of it. I found it easier to fish it in this way than trying to do it from underneath the car. But you'll see me here. I'll go underneath the car, get the zip tie lined up where I want it, tighten it up. And then we're just going to cut off that excess. And now I'm going to try to get this lower control arm in, the new lower control arm. It took a little persuasion, and part of that's on me. I could have made my life a lot easier had I just lifted up on that sway bar a little bit, because the rear part of the control arm sits underneath the sway bar. And there I'm just fishing that front bolt back into the front of the lower control arm. So now that we got that bolt in, I'll get it started by hand. And then here I'm just taking my alignment bar and lining up those rear bolts bolt holes. And like I said, these two bolts had Loctite on them, so I'm going to put some blue Loctite. It was blue Loctite they had on them, and I'm going to put blue Loctite back on them to reinstall. It might be an excessive amount, but if you could see in those bolts, there was probably an excessive amount on them already. So there, I'm getting the front one in. I just used the impact to kind of help it up through there. In hindsight also, I probably should have put this in before I put the inner tie rod in, but that's on me. Now you can see me, I'm putting the rear one in. And here I'm cleaning out the knuckle where the ball joint sits. I just got a little flat disc on a drill there. Not that I think anybody will ever have to do this job on this car again, but you never know. Trying to pay it forward a little bit. Now I'm putting some grease in there to hopefully, same type of deal in the future, make it easier on somebody else. Or myself if I have to do it again. Which I do in a future video. And this was a little bit of a fight too to get that in there. Probably took about 10 minutes of kind of getting that ball joint lined up to get in there correctly, but it finally went. And like I said, you're seeing me reuse this old bolt. I assure you it is just temporary, because at the time of making this video I was waiting on parts, and part of that kit that I bought came with new lower ball joint bolts. But for the sake of this video and reassembly, I had to do it. So anyway, here I'm just snugging everything up before final torque. Same thing here, snugging up the front lower control arm bolt, and then I'm going to snug up the rears. As soon as I find all my tools that are laying around underneath me in a mess. And like I said, on that front rear bolt, you can get a wrench on it. But the rear one, like I said, it takes a flex head ratchet to kind of drop it down in there. So this front one gets torqued to 111 foot-pounds, and then another 90 degrees on top of that. So here I'm going at it with my split beam to set the 111, and now I'm coming in with my digital torque wrench that does angle, and putting the 90 degrees of torque on it. And I now understand why they were so hard to come out. These rears are at 85 foot-pounds each, and then another 90 degrees of torque afterwards. So I'm getting both of those torqued to 85, and then you'll see me come back again with my digital and do the additional 90 degrees of torque. And I know it's not ideal to go in multiple passes, but just the positioning of me, the car, where the bolts are, made it kind of difficult to get one full 90-degree swing. And so the lower ball joint, I've seen mixed things on this. I've seen it where it says 61 foot-pounds or 65. I set this one at 65. You may want to confirm that before you do yours, but I don't think a few more pounds is really going to be noticed or affected. Now I'm just putting the new sway bar end length in. I'm sure these have a torque spec as well, but I just snug them up. Use the impact on the top one, give it a couple of ugga-duggas, and then the one on the bottom with the ratchet. Pretty snug. So now just tighten those sway bar end link bolt nuts up. Again, that bottom one, you access it through a hole in the control arm. And then here I'm just spinning on the outer tie rod. I'm not going to get it aligned in my garage, so I'm getting it close to where it was before. And then I'll torque it to spec, which torque on that is 35 foot-pounds. And then, like I said, now I'm just tightening up the jam nut, and then here it is, 35 foot-pounds. Once I'm done with this car, I'm going to go get it aligned because it needs it. And not just because of what I'm doing here. Previous owner didn't take care of it, so it's needed an alignment for years. Anyway, so now everything's done, driver's side and passenger side. So here I'm just kind of zipping through, greasing every joint that has a grease zert, and apparently I was having some issues there with my grease gun, but yeah, just greasing everything I put in. Sway bar end links, outer tie rod. But anyway, that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. More videos to come on this car, so stay tuned and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.